No sewing machine? No problem. I'm going to show you 6 ways to add stitch texture to your ephemera. And the best part is, no sewing machine needed. Welcome. I'm Ingrid Carlson, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today. We are taking some ephemera, in this case, some digital prints, and we are elevating them to the next level. There's something about stitched ephemera that feels instantly special. It's textured, it's delicate. You can run your fingers across it and feel all of the yumminess, and it carries a charm that you can't achieve with glue alone. And whether you're adding any beads or frayed edges of fabric, or like I'm going to show you here, some painted papers, these little touches bring softness and care to any of your ephemera and really do elevate it. Every piece becomes its own type of poetry, telling its own story. And the best part is that you don't need any fancy equipment. You don't even need a plan. You just need a needle and a little bit of curiosity. Flat paper has its charm, but it's the moment that you add a stitched edge or maybe thread wrapped around a corner that a whole piece can come to life. It's no longer just an image that is two-dimensional and flat. Now it's something that tells a story. It starts beginning to show the layers, the shadows, the movement, and it even begs for your fingers to run across it. It makes the page look less like just glued down pieces to glued down keepsakes. Today, I'm sharing 10 reasons why I keep coming back to this practice and why stitching ephemera is one of my favorite parts of journaling. From the texture and depth to the personal storytelling, it's more than just a little thread. Whether you're a beginner or someone who has stitched for years, I hope that these reasons spark something in you today to go and try your hand at stitching some ephemera for your pages. For my first example, I am simply going to add my ephemera on some of this denim fabric that I had in my stash and stitch around the edges. And something as simple as a little stitch instantly transforms a piece that is plain to something that is layered, something that you can feel and admire, and it really just adds so much charm to any project. I think that it works especially well with digitals because they are flat. We've already talked about distressing digitals to make them look old, and now we're going to go the next notch and add some fabric and some stitching to them to make them look even more interesting. The line art with threading gives a dimension that glue just can't. Glue is hidden behind the scenes. We don't want to see glue, but we do want to see the threads. The texture catches the light, it draws in your eye and invites you to want to feel it, especially when you pair it with fabric or even beads like I'm going to show you. The fabric that I'm using on this piece is actually one of my favorites from an old project, and this little remnant was too good not to showcase. So instead of stitching all the way around the photo, what I did was I stitched on one side, and then now it's become a pocket, but when it's empty you can still see the fabric through it, and I absolutely adore that. And in case you don't have any of your own fabric or you just want to be creative, we are going to talk about point number 2 as we paint our own colors. When you are using fabric, and in this case I'm also in the example as I am painting some backgrounds to use, you can tailor everything to fit and match the tone and aesthetic of the page that you're building. And this is especially helpful when you're using digitals or curated themes like beach, like you're seeing here, florals or vintage, because now you can really add the texture and the colors that will help tell your story. The result is ephemera that feels cohesive and intentional. And layering doesn't just build up paper, it builds emotional depth. And to add even more depth to your pieces, adding beading is a great way to do this. Now, you will bulk up your journals, but it is so worth it for the element that it adds. I think, though, that one of my favorite parts of hand stitching is the experimenting with slow stitching as a form of meditative creativity. It's not about speed, it's about your presence. It helps to quiet your mind and refocus your energy. And it's a way to create something with intention instead of trying to rush for a finished project. Stitching also helps create ephemera that feels handmade and personal. When you are stitching, every stitch is probably going to be a little different, unless you're a master stitcher, and then I'm not. I am very unintentional. I am trying to be messy with my stitches. I like the way that it looks when it is off-centered, or if it isn't completely, every stitch isn't completely lined up. It is a piece of me that is stitched into the ephemera, and I love that. And speaking of using stitching to tell your story, the beads are like a punctuation for your stitching. It's little glimmers that catch the light and make the piece not just feel finished, but feel very special. You don't need a ton of beads. As you've seen here, I've given you examples where I've used just one or two or maybe a little more, but it's a detail that asks the viewer to pause, to look closer, and to feel the piece instead of just seeing it. My absolute favorite reason to add stitching to ephemera, and this is something that you have seen in other projects of mine, is that I love to create cohesive collections. And this is something that you can do while you're watching TV or you're listening to an audiobook. You can make a small little batch of stitched ephemera, and it gives you something that is easy and ready to use for future projects. You can then turn these into pockets, journal toppers, collage bases, or maybe they are the star in the center of a page. It's so satisfying to have a set of beautiful things that you've made sitting in a beautiful little vessel like a vintage teacup that you can pull at any time. It also helps you to use leftover bits of fabric and threads, and to use pieces that might be a little too small to use for a full page, but when used together, they make a little masterpiece. I also love working like this because when you work with something that is small, you can get through a project like this very quickly, and then you have something to show for it. Sometimes you don't have a ton of time to finish a whole journal or even a whole little project. Sometimes you just need to make something small, something that you can finish in one sitting. And so these pieces are low pressure, but they are deeply satisfying. So whether you have a lot of time or maybe your time is a little tight, I hope that you are encouraged today to create one of these for yourself. And let me know down in the comments which of the 6 cards I made is your favorite. And if maybe you've never thought of adding beads, if you would in your next project. I want to thank you so much for being here, for all of your love and support. And before you go, of course, I want to remind you today that you are special. You are. You're beautiful and you matter. And most importantly, you are loved unconditionally. Until next time, love you. Bye.